Hey, over there? Y'all ready? Yes, sir. Okay. Y'all ready over there? John, Kelly? I know, I've asked him. Y'all good too? All right. This will call the Sanger City Council into regular session at 7:07 p.m. on June 16th, 2025. If you will, please rise for the invocation to be led by Councilman Gann, followed by the pledge to be led by Councilman Chick.
Pray with me, please. Dear Lord, we come to you tonight to say thank you. Thank you for all the blessings and answered prayers that you've given us individually and as in a community. Thank you for bringing everybody here together, and please give us guidance and wisdom on all these things that we have to discuss and try to figure out. We ask that you watch over everyone that needs your help. For all those suffering, we thank you for everything that you've provided. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen. Turn around, face the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. The first item on our agenda is our citizens input time, as usual. I have a couple of citizen input forms here, and we are going to allow a little extra time for at least one of them, just for some allowances, ADA type allowances. So just a reminder, we can listen and take input. We cannot deliberate on items during citizens input. Staff can listen and take things under advisement, but because it's a non-agenda item, we can't deliberate it. So we're taking input from you. We're happy to hear from you, but that's all we can do. Normally, we're looking at 3 minutes. I have been asked for some accommodations on one of them, and we're happy to allow that to happen. So for extra time and other accommodations there. So if you are going to speak, we would like to get a citizens input form. They're on the table, so we have it for the record. I do have two. So please get that to us if you are going to speak. That doesn't hold you up from speaking, but we need to get one before the night's over, okay? All right. So first one that I have is Peggy Williams. Peggy, if you'll come up and state your name and address for the record, we'd be happy to hear from you.
I'm Peggy Williams at 316 3rd Street in Sanger. And I am as president of the Sullivan Senior Center and now a board member of the Sanger, Texas Senior Center. The center has been a project of mine for many years, with the goal of getting seniors out of their houses. Not only has this helped them, but it also provided a reason for me to get out of my cozy bed, which I needed. The exercise and the games have provided much needed diversion in my life, rather than focusing on my troubles. I appreciate the efforts that the city of Sanger has made in providing a building for the senior center, particularly the efforts that Ryan Nolte and his Parks and Rec department have made. They have been a godsend for us. While First Baptist Church has also been a godsend during this time, our own building will not have the restrictions such as on time, room availability, and access that we have now. We are looking forward to being able to add such programs as a balance class put on by the Texas Department of Agriculture, in addition to our regular exercise and games. Of course, our plans for the building are very ambitious, in line with the growth in Sanger, including a computer area and gaming tables such as shuffleboard. These will encourage moving around rather than being so sedentary all the time. We have had up to 12 people come for exercise before, And it is imperative that the seniors have a place to exercise their bodies and importantly, their minds.
Thank you, Peggy. Appreciate it. The second form that I have is for Arlene Perez. Arlene, you're welcome to come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. We're happy to hear from you, and if you need some extra time for accommodation, that is absolutely fine.
My name is Arlene. At PO Box 12068 MC068, Austin, Texas 78711. That's my address. So I came here to see if, what I was looking for is someone to maybe look over the police policies and the manual and see how they align with when we do investigations. I used to live here in San Diego for 17 years. I lived here a long time ago. I translated for the court for artists. And I'm here because I'm a victim of domestic violence with my children. I'm a dependent adult, and I'm recognized by the state of Texas as such. But because the crimes are done in different ways, they're hard to catch. Here's the police, I brought the police department's domestic violence, which I have here, I'm sure you have. The domestic violence says in the policy that you have that when there's domestic violence, that the officer has to arrest right then and there. They do not have to happen, it does not have to happen in front of the officer, but they have the right and the jurisdiction to seek after when it comes to domestic violence. So the problem that I've had is that I live in Dallas, my children live here, and I had a 21,000 just here in San. But because it happens in so many counties, you have to go to each county. But when it is domestic violence or organized crime, they have jurisdiction to go after those people. So that they did not arrest my daughter. I brought my case here to you June of 2022, 3 years ago. Nothing has been done. There's no subpoenas, witnesses. They didn't call any of the other places where the fraud was. My attorney who's one of my best friends, he's
Take your time. Take your time. You're fine.
he's a witness to how it happened, but nobody called him. I brought audio recordings of 21 establishments where my credit cards were taken and my identity. They identified the suspects using my card inside of their accounts, like Amazon, Apple, other things. No subpoenas were obtained. I'm under the understanding that when you go after audio, you can only have 90 days to go after it, then you can get rid of it. Then I have no recourse. So I have no recourse. My daughter has a pharmacy license, she's here, and through that pharmacy, she steals identities and she steals money from people. When I called Sanger, the day that I called Sanger, without me knowing, you guys have a pharmacy here, and the prescriptions will be taken to the pharmacy. Somebody goes picks up the pharmacy, and when the patient went, the pharmacy was gone. It was gone. But I supplied the officers with, I think it was like 17, because it's an organized crime. They steal cars. They take the VIN off of the car. The VIN stays underneath the car, but they get up on the title. I have pictures. I have everything. Nobody did anything. Here's the Sanger. Also, the Sanger. It says when your policy says that if you are a dependent adult with a disability, which I am, and I gave that to your officers, then you have to act on it. You can't assume that nobody acted on it. Nobody. They have financially ruined me. I just got out of hospital Saturday with a heart attack. Here it is, and I just got a number to show you guys. Here's my credit alerts. I have 30 active phone lines on my credit. 30. And I got the credit alert, and then I got with the number that came in, and then I got my TransUnion, and they're here. When I call the numbers, guess who they belong to? My children. There's no way that, how did that happen? And it tells you right here, my credit alert, your social security has been used, it tells you what information has been used. this is, if anybody knows what hate crime is, my children, in order to get away with the crime, they call my financial advisor through Facebook. I have the messages where they tell them, my mom is sick. She's schizophrenic, she's bipolar, and here's the text messages. Again, with a disability, that's called a hate crime. Nobody did anything about it, nobody. I emailed Santa police. I said, I'm afraid of my children, help me. Nobody moved on it. This is in June of 2022. And nobody had what did me. And the reason behind it was because they said that if they don't have jurisdiction, so they couldn't do anything. But again, that is incorrect. Because what happened, I have to call a Texas Ranger. I have here, what's the other one? When I kicked my foster son out of the house, I cleaned the house and there was passports, credit cards, IDs, mail, you name it, a whole bunch of people. I had it and a laptop. When I called the police, nobody picked it up. So I had to go to Texas Rangers. He picked it up, but they wanted the laptop. I ended up at the hospital because nobody helped me. Because they knew I did press charges, the day that they found out that I was going to press charges, I had an affidavit from a counselor that they called to manipulate her to try and commit me to a hospital. She gave her an affidavit. They called her. She called San Police. Nobody answered and nobody returned the phone call. It should have fixed it. Here's the hospital record. Because they committed me to the hospital for 4 hours, their own attendant, that's when they found me to be addicted to domestic violence. The hospital did, who knew I didn't go there to get out. So the own hospital says here, she's not a victim, she's a victim. Her kids have done this to her. Just read the medical. And that's from what they did. But when they were my kids tell a police officer, you're a police officer, well, she's crazy. Okay, well, they have the right to say that. Well, you're right, you do have the right. But you also have the right to investigate. Here's the affidavit from the council. I have 17 police reports, 17 because it's happened so many places. 17 police reports. One of the police reports on September 8th at 12 noon, I have it right here. My daughter calls the police without me knowing it. She said, my mom is crazy. She's bipolar. She needs help. So they send the right to my house, not knowing. But they didn't tell me. They said, okay, you're fine. They did not think I did. At 4 o'clock the same night, they break into my house. They took the keys for it. My keys were stolen. My sword, my keys, they vandalized my car because nobody listened. When they break into my house, I called 911. I have the audio recording. The audio recording, you hear me tell them the beginning. The dispatcher says, man, are you okay? Calm down. Have you taken your medicine? I'm like, what the hell? But I think again, when I found out the police report, because they called at noon. So that's what's called hate crime. They're actively, so I don't tell them they're not getting pursued, but nobody hears me, nobody listens. And I try not to. For 3 years, I didn't say anything to the policeman. I let him go ahead and do the investigation. There's been three detectives. Each time when they leave, I call them, nobody tells me they left. And then I call them, they have to start all over. And nobody's done anything. So where does that leave us? Where do I stay? They tell me go back to Dallas, go to Dallas. I asked for a report, and I don't know if I can use it 10 minutes. I went back to Dallas. The investigator that was investigating my case came after me. I have a body cam, so I was going to put it he came after me. I called 911. He told the policeman, excuse me, I don't cuss. He goes, after case, he went after me. The police officer, because he was a police officer, he's nice to him. I didn't know any of it until I got the body cam. Where does that leave me? Where? You keep telling me to go back to Dallas? Okay, I can't go back to Dallas right now. The police, he's why, I don't know. But what happens to me, I just, here's right here, the Social Security office called me 2 weeks ago. I have the letter right here. Did somebody impersonate me? Took my money from my Social Security? They're gonna give me my money back, but it's gonna take 9 months. From here to 9 months, I have nothing. So what did I get? I got a vacate notice. So they're asking me to vacate my apartment because I have no money to pay. So while everybody's go back to Daniel, go back to Daniel, just do this, they give me no recourse. And what do I have to do? I'm gonna have to go homeless. And every single thing I tell you, I have evidence for. Not one thing will I not tell you that I don't have it for. The robbers. You have a police officer right now that goes, he's a detective. He used to be a sheriff. The robbers. I know nothing about robbers. But I have a best friend now. His name is ChatGPT, who helps me. The best thing you're at. So ChatGPT taught me how to look at robbers, how to get into it, how to look at it. I found my tweets. I didn't know what to do back there. Pictures. Pictures are very good. Pictures are just awful. Thank goodness. Because I found my daughter's Mac address. I see it when I go to the bar, which is right there. It tells me when she tried it, when she tried it, it tells me how far she went, it tells me what money she took, where she took it, ChatGPT will tell you everything. Then you can map it, it tells you. But the police aren't doing anything. Maybe because they don't know how, I don't know. I don't know, right? But I want the policy to be, because for me, I live out there. And I, when I do say something, then I'm a weak person, I bark or something, but it's been 3 years, guys, 3 years. And there's no reason why those cops should not have those peanuts when I have the errors. So who's gonna help me now? And who's gonna help me get to a apartment? You don't want to do that.
What's
No
this?
video?
What's that?
No video?
No, I don't think we have the capability to put the video of, are you asking to put some video up?
I have video, I have.
I think we would leave that for the police
Okay.
to investigate the details. Any details like you've been providing the city secretary, if you want to provide, you can leave those with us. That's absolutely fine. And we'll,
See right here? These are calls. Every single one of these are calls. Unknown calls. See? Unknown. Okay? Because they're unknown, they tell me nothing. But you know what the calls tell me? That if I don't drop a case, they're going to have to kill me. So they're unknown calls. You see right here? They're coming from my phone. So how is that my fault that these calls are unknown? I don't get it.
well, anything you can leave with us, I think that would be helpful. And
So I would appreciate if somebody would come and let me know stuff. The lady kind of, I don't need to yell, I don't need to get mad. I don't need to do it, guys, but I don't know what else to do. Currently, right now, I can read it. I am actually pro se in the federal court against the police officer in Dallas. It's going pretty well. I have to go to an appeal first, but when you go to appeal for federal court, you don't just appeal in federal court. They have to allow you to appeal. They allow me to appeal. I wrote it correctly, hopefully. But I can't go anymore because I just had a heart attack and I can't do it. I don't have the strength. I'm out of breath and I can't do it anymore. So, but here's the appeal. And it's going pretty good.
anything you want us to see, leave with us. And if not, don't leave it with us. Okay.
Here you go. Thank
All
you.
right. All right. Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak during the citizens' input time? Okay, seeing no one approaching the podium, we'll move on then to public hearing items. The first public hearing, item 1, is to conduct a public hearing on a rewrite of Chapter 3 Building Regulations, Articles 3.1400, sign regulations of the Code of Ordinances. I'll call the public hearing open at 7:27 and let staff introduce it, and then we'd be open to anybody wanting to make comments.
First up, we have our sign regulations. So that's the chapter, it's not the entire chapter, it's section 3.1400. This is a complete rewrite of this section. What they've done basically is expanded definitions, revised language, improved the organization, consistent, kind of brought everything to current terms. They've improved our regulations over temporary signs to give us a little bit more regulation there. We didn't have anything on murals really. They've established a mural guideline along with window paintings. They've improved some of our downtown signage district and expanded the variance and appeals section. So, and they tried to take out any conflicting language, which because of our ordinance have been pieced together over time, you end up with some conflicting language there. And so they also established 2 sign overlay districts. So one is along 455 and one is along I-35. So that's basically what this rewrite does, and that's what they spoke to you about in our joint meeting. So that's where we're at with this one. So this is basically what you've seen with the tweaks that you guys
Okay.
listed.
So we're in the public hearing time. So is there anybody wishing to speak during the public hearing on Chapter 3, Article 3.1400, Item 1 on the agenda? Okay. Seeing no one approaching the podium, we'll close the public hearing at 7:29. Move to Item 2 is conduct a public hearing on rewrite of Chapter 10 subdivision regulations. We'll open the public hearing at 7:29. Let staff introduce it.
So this is for the subdivision. Again, this was a complete rewrite of this entire chapter. It's made it much easier to follow. The pages are outlined so you know where you're at, what you're doing. Made it much, much simpler. They've expanded definitions. They improved the procedure sections, implemented some administrative procedures and plat approvals, which we've discussed before, moving that to a one-step process. They integrated responsive language to the legislative changes, so they've been watching the legislative changes to make sure that we're in line with those. They built our department a lot of fillable forms, so we can just put them out online and they can fill those for us. They made sure that our ordinance is aligned with our comprehensive plan to make sure that we're staying in line with that. We took all of the hard-coded fees out, and you'll see this in all of our ordinances. We've taken all of those fees that were split up in every different chapter and moved them all to a master fee schedule. And then they addressed, again, any conflicting regulations.
Okay, anybody wishing to speak during the public hearing on Item 2 on the agenda, Chapter 10, rewrite of the subdivision regulations? Seeing no one approaches the podium, we'll close the public hearing at 7:31. Item 3 is to conduct a public hearing on a rewrite of Chapter 14, Planning and Zoning of the Code of Ordinances. We'll open that public hearing at 7:31 and let staff introduce this item.
And again, this was a complete rewrite of this chapter. This chapter probably had the most work to put into it. Again, they expanded the definitions. We did that in all chapters. We completely took our zoning table, which had about 10 different residential zonings, and pared those down and made them match with our comprehensive plan. So that really kind of narrowed those down to where we have about 4 now, so it makes it much simpler. And we took what was coded, if you were, SF3, and we put in there what you would be under the new code. So when we go and look at those historical districts, we still know where they fit in today. Let's see, we eliminated any contradictory language. The searchability is way better now. It makes it much easier. It's much more user-friendly. We updated the procedures for zoning approvals and ordinance adoptions. Again, took out the fees, added definitions for various gambling devices, We don't have that legalized yet in Texas, but looking to the future when that could potentially happen, we wanted to make sure that we had on with an amendment. We created the non-conforming use notice requirements. Mini storage off-street parking, we regulated that some because you don't need the same amount of parking in mini storage that you would need in a big box store or something to that nature. And we combined the light industrial and heavy industrial into just an industrial zoning district and improved the landscape regulations. So again, this is kind of what they went over with you guys in our internal meeting.
Okay. Anybody wishing to come forward during the public hearing on Chapter 14, Planning and Zoning, Code of Ordinances? Okay. We'll close the public hearing at 7:33. Item 4 is to conduct a public hearing on amendments to Chapter 6, Health and Sanitation of the Code of Ordinances, amending the chapter to include more enforceable code regulations. We'll call the public hearing open at 7:33 and let staff introduce it.
Okay, these next three chapters deal more with actually our code enforcement division. So these are actually making our ordinances more enforceable and a little bit better. We didn't have a really solid code enforcement language, so this has added some things that will help with that. We amended the grass and weeds. It had to be an average of 12 inches or taller. So they could leave one part really tall and mow everything else and they would still be okay. We amended that to make it 12 inches, period. So if they're over 12 inches, then it becomes a violation. We mirrored the state law to our nuisance, as a nuisance for our trash and debris and our high grass and weeds. And then we put in a regulation that made sure that limbs over sidewalks were trimmed to at least 7 feet, so people could pass by under those. So that's basically what this chapter did. And these were just amendments, it was not a total rewrite. These were just things we added in.
Okay. Anyone wishing to speak on item 4, Chapter 6 of the ordinances? Okay, seeing no one approaching, we'll close the public hearing at 7:35. That brings us to item 5, which is conduct a public hearing on amending on Chapter 8, Health and Sanitation of the Code of Ordinances, amend the chapter, include more enforceable code regulations. We'll open the public hearing at 7:35 and let staff introduce it.
Okay, again, on this one, this is just an amendment. We didn't rewrite the entire chapter, so these are just things we've added. We added some new definitions. We allowed regulation of fencing and parking surface maintenance, which in the past we've not really had anything that required fence maintenance or parking surface maintenance. We developed some outside storage regulations for both commercial and residential. We added some regulations for junk vehicles to make sure that we can address those, even if they're parked on a lot. We mirrored state law again for trash and debris. And then the Planning and Zoning Commission has recommended approval on all of these coming forward.
Okay, anybody wishing to come forward on Chapter 8 of the Code of Ordinances? Seeing no one approaching the podium, we'll close the public hearing at 7:36. That brings us to item 6, which is conduct a public hearing on amendments to Chapter 12, Traffic and Vehicles of the Code of Ordinances, amending the chapter to include more enforceable code and regulations. We'll open the public hearing at 7:36.
And again, this was an amendment, not a rewrite. So we added some definitions. We require parking to be on an improved surface and kind of define what that is. We prohibit vehicle storage, so that you might have a mechanic that stores 5 vehicles in his lot, but this would prohibit some vehicle storage. It makes it unlawful to use a vehicle for living or sleeping. We currently didn't have any regulations that did that. It prohibits recreation or utility vehicles or commercial vehicles, boats, trailers on public right-of-ways or to obstruct visibility from adjacent driveways and sidewalks. So that's basically the items we added into this.
Okay. Anyone wishing to come forward on Chapter 12, Traffic and Vehicles of the Code of Ordinances? to speak? Okay, see no one approaching the podium, we'll close the public hearing at 7:37. That brings us to item 7, which is conduct a public hearing on a petition for creation of the Alada Public Improvement District Number 1, PID 01, from the Pack Group Limited and Juan Williamson Quarter Horses, Inc., the owners. So I'll open the public hearing at 7:37. Let staff introduce it.
District. This will generally deal with proposed improvements. So your water, your sewer, your roadways, those kind of public improvements. It'll allow for the cost, estimated cost, the boundaries of these, how the method of assessment, which I think you guys are kind of familiar with, an apportionment of cost, consent request of the petitioner, and the advisory board and standing of the petitioner. So this request to hold that public hearing to create that PID that would allow you guys to either approve the PID or deny it. That is what this portion does.
So we're taking input on whether people want us to have a future public hearing or not.
Correct.
The public hearing for a public hearing. Okay, classic government here. All right, so anyone wishing to comment during the public hearing on the creation of a lot of PID, as outlined in item 7, is welcome to do so now. We do have on the consent agenda and I guess in 19 are related to this, so I think there's further discussion. I know we have owners and interested parties here. They're welcome to comment during the public input time, but we also have some time to do that later. But there's people sitting here, and if the owners or anybody wishes to say something at this point, you're welcome to do so. And anybody else wishing to give input on this item 7 is welcome to come forward now. Okay. Seeing no one approaching the podium, we'll close this public hearing at 7:39. And we'll move to item 8, which is to conduct a public hearing on a request to replat Bolivar Heights Addition, being approximately 5.713 acres of land described as Bolivar Heights Addition Lot 1 PT within the city of Sanger ETJ, generally on the north side of FM 455 West, approximately 1,289 feet west of the intersection of FM 455 West and Sam Bass Road. I'll open this public hearing at 7:40. Let staff introduce it.
Yes, this is a development that had already come before you guys for platting. They had planned to do multifamily in this area out in our ETJ. It's been bought by a new owner who no longer wishes to do the multifamily on that area. It's actually a builder, and they've torn the house down. They've already demoed the house that was currently there, and there's a big shop. They want to use the shop as their office and to hold some of their supplies. So this is really taking those lots and making them all into one. So it'll be a complete just one lot.
Okay. Anyone wishing to speak on the public hearing related to the Bolivar Heights Addition is welcome to come forward and give us input at this point. Seeing no one approaching the podium, we'll close the public hearing at 7:41. Okay, council, that brings us to our consent agenda. I don't want to presume anything here, but I'm going to take a stab at this. I think because we went through work session and did not get to address the code of ordinances part, that we would pull and make sure I'm doing this and I'm not missing anything. I think 9 through 14 we would pull from consent, and I think because we were still in the midst of discussing the PID, we would probably pull 16. I think we're probably okay leaving 15, which is the tech line purchase of stuff, in the minutes. Does anybody wish to do something different than that?
We'll say 9 through 14 and 15.
So really, the only two that we're leaving on consent is 15 and 17.
We can get started with that. I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve consent agenda items number 15 and 17 as presented.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilman Bilyeu to approve items 15 and 17 of the consent as presented. Do I have a second?
Go ahead.
Okay, I got a second from Councilman Burris, again, to approve the motion by Councilman Bilyeu, seconded by Councilman Burris to approve consent agenda items 15 and 17 as presented. Okay, all in favor of that motion indicate by raising your hand. Passes unanimously. And we're pulling 9 through 14 and 16. Is everybody still good with that?
And just tackle those in order.
Or, yeah, I think what I'd like to do, in the interest of the people that are in the audience, I'm going to juggle this thing a little bit, okay?
Good.
Because I think a lot of the ordinance stuff is in-house, that's us, and so I'm going to let that be toward the tail end of this thing. Just try to public that's here. So what I'd like to do is I think item 21 and 23 are kind of connected because we've got the 21's our senior center modular building, and 1A is the ground we have to clear to place it. So I'm presuming we have to clear the ground before we can place the land. So I'm going to go with 23 first. Council needs to understand, I think you've read your packet, that they're connected. So I would like to open item 23, which is consider and possible action authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with Tactical for the demolition of the lumber yard at 125 Elm Street, parking in Sanger downtown. So we will open item 23, and I don't know if staff would like to comment on that one.
Yeah, Mayor, Council, as you mentioned, really items 21 through 23 are interconnected. But with the loss of the Sullivan Senior Center as a city property, the council did agree to relocate them temporarily. Staff we had budgeted close to $500,000 for renovations with the intent to increase that budget for renovations to the Sullivan Center. So this is a quasi-budgeted item. The money is actually being used for the same purpose. In order to place that building on the lot where we could accommodate some of the parking on concrete, because we'll have to have handicap parking that we can't use with asphalt. That kind of pushed us to the corner where the lumber yard is. Now, if you remember, you have a parks plan, a conceptual that was approved by the council that shows the removal of that building. At some point, we thought that we might as well do it now if we're going to do it later and kind of kill two birds with one stone. So this is a consideration to go ahead and take down the lumber yard property. That's both buildings. Tactical is willing to do that under what we call a wet abatement. They will still have to do the lead testing and the asbestos testing, but primarily that has more to do with how they dispose of that property. If you're dealing with lead and asbestos, if those are found there, those have to be disposed of in a landfill via separate cell. But once they've identified that, they will open basically water cannons over the building. They'll bring it down, they'll load it into a truck, and they'll haul it off. And that is item 23 in a nutshell.
Okay,
So
any questions?
yes, so what you're talking about is the abatement. That includes the abatement?
Yes, because now there's a couple of factors here. Because it is a demolition, abatement for us does not mean putting a tent on the building and taking it out a piece at a time. It is knocking the dust down during the process and loading it in the truck. So the testing will be done, again, still has to be done, but the abatement itself will be done through wet abatement process.
Okay, so that's a good distinction of this demolition, because if it was a remodel, rehabilitation, then you get into all the fans and Jess, those costs
Yeah, they skyrocket.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
have no idea what it's gonna be. So this is turnkey, $42,000 for the entire thing.
Yep.
As it sits now, yes. Now, again, if we run into something during that process, it could change, but that will come to you if there is a change, unless it's within the parameters the council's already adopted for a basic change order. So if it is a minor issue, you might not see it. You'll hear about it certainly. But if we run into a major issue that would be substantial to what we're doing for some reason, that would come back to you to make an adjustment on or have us go with an alternate method.
Okay. Any other questions from council on item 23? Letting him click for a minute. Mhm. So if there's not other questions, I'd entertain a motion on item 23.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve item 23 on our agenda, authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with Tactical for the demolition of the lumberyard at 125 Elm Street for the added parking in Sanger downtown. Sorry, I want to make sure I was on the right one.
You are. All right, I've got a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
So I've got a motion by Councilman Bilyeu, seconded by Councilman Gann, approving, authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with Technical for the demolition of lumberyard at 125 Elm Street for the added parking in Sanger downtown. Any other discussion by council? All in favor indicate by raising your hand. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Let's go back up then and grab item 21, which is consideration and possible action authorizing the city manager to execute a contract for Mobile Modular for the construction of a modular building for the Sanger, Texas Senior Center.
Mayor, council, as we've discussed, you approved relocating the seniors. We were able to secure a place in line with Mobile Modular, who did our firehouse most recently to construct this building. We worked with the seniors to lay out a floor plan that will accommodate their activities and some future planning while we continue to future plan for the senior programs. This is on the agenda tonight. They anticipate right now that it could be 3 months to delivery from the time we finalize the order. That's different than the timeline you were given before because we did not secure a place in line. We were waiting to make sure that if we were going to house the seniors, that they were involved in the process and that we did not just give them. We have a rare opportunity to provide them a facility that works for them rather than trying to make them fit a program into a building we didn't have to begin with.
So can I take this in detail, just to understand the timeline? So 3 months for delivery. All right. Assume, reading the quote, if they're gonna block and level, it doesn't come in one big structure. It's gonna come in parcels and they're gonna assemble it. They assemble it.
Yeah, they assemble it.
So, and I'm trying to just get a timeline, 3 months for delivery, once it's here, is that done in a week, 2 days, or is it take a lot of time to assemble?
It will take possibly, this is weather dependent too, like anything else. Because the building comes down, that's on that lot now, and this is really where that will be placed. The utilities will be prepped.
And we're doing the utilities.
Yeah, we'll do water, electric, communications there. Those will all be prepped, so it could take probably 2 to 3 weeks to set that depending on weather. Now, that there is a caveat there as well, that there is going to be some handicap accessibility, that if a lead time changes on the accessibility, it could take a little longer to get a CO for that building. But as it sits, once the building's delivered, we're looking at just a few weeks.
Okay, and then part of that timeline is not just building a rectangular building, they're also doing the deck around it and the ramp. That's part of it.
Yeah, that's part of the accessibility.
So they're doing all the woodwork on the outside, and then, so there's a lot of moving parts. Obviously, the building comes down, but we've already if we pass this, we move forward of getting that order in. Now we're on a 3-month window. So really 3 months to get that place excavated, cleared off. But I'm not trying to get into too much of the details, even though I'm getting into too
Sure.
much of the details. Obviously, there may be some rough utility work done to find out exactly where it's going to be. Is that fair enough?
We know where it's going
Okay.
to be. We've already done
And
that.
then will the paving begin at the earliest opportunity? So we've already, or we haven't gotten to
We're
paving
going
yet?
to.
So if we approve the paving, that can be done as well. So there's a lot of moving parts for this to come together. What I'm trying to do is that it's not linear, that there's a lot of things going, so each thing is in place to go to minimize the time from once that thing arrives, hits the deck here, everything is moving, everything is in place to where we have shortened the finish out time as much as possible. That's what I'm getting at.
And that's the benefit. We are running all of these processes, if approved, concurrently. That's factual. Because we're moving the modular structure, once the water is hooked up, the electric is hooked up, the seniors can begin moving things in. There's no additional finish out. There's no carpet, there's no paint, there's no cabinetry. All that is done when it arrives. So they are just waiting for it to hit the ground and be plugged in, essentially. Now, we do have the benefit, you as a group have not met Parker Robbins, who's sitting in the corner back there. We brought Parker on as our capital projects manager, and to his benefit, this will be the first probably start to finish project that he'll be making sure that those timelines are in order as well. Parker's responsibility to us is to assist the department heads with various capital projects, and we believe that the council has made this a priority project for us, and it will be treated as such in our process.
Well, welcome aboard, Parker.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
What is the size of this building?
yeah.
So, yeah, it's about 6,000 square foot.
Yeah, where did you see that? I mean, I saw I saw the layout, but I didn't know the dimensions, how big it was. And the seniors contributed to the finish out, the interior finish out, build and floor plan, correct?
I would like to say, and they can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that they designed the interior to their fit, and we took what they had designed and made sure that it would work within the building.
We were emphatically asked, and we actually provided Brian with the layout drawing. And so what you see is mostly ours, we have modified it slightly due to the regulations for the size of bathrooms. So those have changed a little bit, and in addition of the bathrooms, because of, again, the regulations. What you see presented was and is our intended plan, yes.
Did you want me to design it?
Your man.
Well, you know, I mean, the carpet I would have picked and the paint I would have picked, you wouldn't, yeah. Okay, good.
The only other comment I'd make is I know the city has multiple projects where we might need to relocate staff in the future. So as this is a temporary, hopefully an improvement, but a temporary, kind of longer term temporary building, that if we would get a permanent senior center in anticipation of that park coming to life, that frees up this modular building that could be either left like it is or reconfigured internally to meet future interim staff location if we had right now there's fire, there's other city hall type things, so additional city, so it's got optionality for the city into the future, which I think is another positive to doing it this way.
That was the intent, Mayor,
Right.
along with the temporary fire station. We have already laid out possibilities for those buildings to be reallocated and reused by the city in the future,
Right.
With sites and future plans in mind.
Yeah. So it's not a one and done deal. It's got optionality for us as we get the senior facility. So very good. Any other comments or questions by council?
Mr. Mayor, if you're looking for a motion, I'd
Sure.
like to make one. Item 2021, I'll make a motion that we take action and approve and authorize the city manager to execute a contract with Mobile Modular for the construction of a modular building for the Sanger, Texas Senior Center.
Okay, I've got a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Bilyeu, seconded by Councilman Burris, to approve authorizing city manager to execute a contract with Mobile Modular for the construction of modular building for the Sanger, Texas Senior Center. Any other comments or questions? All in favor indicate by raising your hand. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Let's go ahead and deal with 22, which is related, which is consideration and possible action authorizing the city manager to approve a proposal for Cardwell Paving LLC to construct a parking lot on the corner of 2nd Street and Bolivar Street.
Mayor, council, this is for parking that can additionally be utilized in the downtown when the seniors are not utilizing that structure. The placement of that is due to a majority of that lot not being parkable. And of course, with the use of this, we believe it's imperative that they're able to have a surface that is not gravel or dirt or mud. Cardwell is our authorized vendor for these services now, and staff has proposed that we utilize asphalt paving with them, with the exception of the handicap spots, so that as we move to the park program in the future, we can easily fill that up.
You can,
Fill
We
it
can
up.
remove it.
yeah,
Right.
because that was gonna be my question of where the placement was in this, because it's gonna have to come up for the.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
The other thing, optionality wise, we're getting more people downtown, so seniors are there during the day most of the time. We have some night activities going on downtown, so this is additional parking for that purposes too. So again, a little bit of killing two birds with one stone here. Okay. Any other comments or questions
Well,
from
if the
council?
seniors want a valet park, they could probably make some extra.
Yeah,
money.
exactly. Yep. All right. Any other comments?
Are you looking for?
Yeah, sure.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we take action to approve and authorize the city manager to approve a proposal from Cardwell Paving LLC to construct a parking lot on the corner of 2nd Street and Bolivar Street.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All right, I've got a motion by Councilman Bilyeu, seconded by Councilman Gann, authorizing the city manager to approve a proposal from Cardwell Paving LLC to construct a parking lot on the corner of 2nd Street and Bolivar Street. Any other discussion? All in favor indicate by raising your hand. Passes unanimously. Thank you. All right. Thank y'all. Uh-huh. Very good. All right. What I'd like to do now is go to item 18.
Well, really, 24 is sort of hand in hand with that.
Oh, for
Yeah,
appropriating the funds for those?
Yeah, that's okay. Let's go grab 18. All that's internal to us. I'd like to get anybody who's here. So I'm going to 18. Consideration and possible action on preliminary plat of Sanger Daycare Edition, being approximately 5.070 acres of land described as Mary H. Shirley, Block 14, SPT 15 and A, 1241A, Tier Wester, Track 276, generally located on the east side of 2nd, approximately 142 feet north of Jackaloo Street.
I will tell you, Mayor, the applicant has requested that we withdraw this permit due to recent events that have happened, and they're going to withdraw this project and they will resubmit it earlier.
Okay, so we're taking no action then.
No, they're going to completely withdraw the project.
Okay, so we're taking no action on 18 at the request of the applicant. Let's go to item 20. I know I'm jumping around, but I'm trying to get it down to the two big items left. Item 20 is consideration and possible action on a request for a replat of Bolivar Heights Edition between being approximately 5.713 acres of land described as Bolivar Heights Edition Lot 1 and Lot 1 PT within the city of Sanger's ETJ, generally located on the north side of FM 455 West, approximately 1,289 feet west of the intersection of FM 455 West and Sam Bass Road, This was our public hearing from earlier, but now we're at the action item. Staff has introduced it. Is the applicant or anybody wanting to speak, or does staff need to say further?
Yeah, staff, yeah.
Do you need any other amplification you need to, Ramey?
Let me, visual.
I know I'm jumping around on you, I apologize.
No, that's okay. They have not satisfied all of the comments,
Yeah.
so staff would recommend denial based on that.
Okay. And they were aware,
They are aware.
Yeah. yeah,
Mr. Mayor, you want
yeah,
to take a time for motion?
yeah. I think we can take a
Due to
motion.
staff's input, I'll make a motion that we deny on the condition that all comments have not been satisfied.
Do I hear a second? Second. I've got a motion by Councilman Billiou, seconded by Councilman Burris, to deny the replat of Bolivar Heights addition as detailed in item 20, due to the fact that not all engineering comments have been satisfied at this time. Any other discussion by council? Okay, so all in favor of the motion to deny indicate by raising your hand. Motions to deny passes unanimously. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, let's go ahead. So I think that gets us down to basically city items, except for ordinances and our PID mostly, I think, if I haven't mistaken. So is there an order in which I should take either 16 or 19? Do I need to take 16 first and then 19? Is that correct?
16 is the resolution, 19 is the... It doesn't really matter.
It doesn't matter?
The petition for creation, but we did want to make one point on the petition for creation. Make sure that it calls for the hearing on the 7th on the actual petition.
What's-
So I don't have it from me, I apologize, but the petition may have accidentally called for the hearing to be on June 16th, which it needs to be on July 7th, because we're calling for the
16th.
public hearing on the 7th.
So this is item 16? Okay, let's take a look. It does say June 16th at the bottom. Well, that's a public hearing is called for, so that's the one we're gonna have. I got it. Okay, so we can approve 16, if we're moved forward. I know council may have other questions before we move on 16 and or 19. But when we do take movement on 16, we'll want to adjust the resolution to amend it for July the 7th. Okay, all right. Since they're connected, this is just setting the public hearing for the future. So we're really not obligating ourselves to anything on this one. So this one's pretty easy. Okay, so council, we talked about a lot of things. I think this is just set a public, we had the public hearing, now we're setting a future public hearing. You heard it for July the 7th, so I think that's not much detail there, that we're, that this is an easy one. So you may have questions, because I know this is, you know, an involved process, so I do not want to rush it, but at council and hearing from staff, we think this one's fairly straightforward and easy, because it's just setting.
Correct. This
So
does not bind you to anything but that hearing.
But that hearing.
Correct.
So I think 19 has more meat to it. Okay, so having said that, I don't want to talk you into anything, but what's your pleasure on 16?
I'll make, if nobody has any objection, I have no problem going forward with setting that public hearing
Yeah.
for July 7th. So if not, I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion that we take action and approve resolution 2025-06, a petition for creation of the Alada Improvement District Number 1, PID Number 1, from the PAC Group Ltd. and Ron Williamson Quarter Horses Inc., the owners, with the one modification, that the future public hearing date be set for July 7th, 2025 versus the June 16th. That's clear enough?
Yep, I think so. Okay, do I hear a second to the motion?
Second.
Okay, I've got a motion by Councilman Billieu, seconded by Councilman Burris to approve Resolution 2025-06, a petition for creation of the allotment District Number 1, PID 01, from the PAC Group Limited and Ron Williams Quarter Horses, Inc., the owners, with the one amendment that the public hearing will be held on July the 7th, 2025, versus as stated in the packet in our resolution, which was June 16th of 2025. Any other discussion by council? All in favor of the motion indicate by raising your hand. Passes unanimously. Thank you. That brings us to item 19, which is consideration and possible action on a development agreement between City of Sanger, Meritage Homes Developer, PAC Group Limited, Ron Williams Quarter Horses, Inc. owners, those are the owners as a group, to develop a residential development utilizing a public improvement district. Council has spent significant time during work session discussing some of the logistics here, but I think we probably have ongoing questions at this point. So, council, other questions you have? I don't know if staff may have thought of some additional comments coming out of work session you might want. I don't know if you have or not, but I'm opening up so that if you thought of any clarifying items that you felt important to mention to us, I'd start with that probably.
I can take one. The figure question that we were discussing, that is left blank intentionally because it's dependent on the plan development zoning and how that is approved. So I know that we have developers council here and they can get specific to those plan development and the zoning regulations in addition to us.
And Mayor, Council, you might consider just removing that figure and any reference to it since you have not set lot sizes yet. Because it will in your PD.
It was figure 1 as I recall.
I believe that's correct.
So what you're saying, it was intended to be a placeholder? Is that all?
That's right.
Okay.
And you could also, I thought you could also approve it subject to PD.
To the PD being approved and add the
And
figure
the
later.
appropriate insertion at that
Correct,
time.
once you've approved.
Okay.
This was part of that, where we usually run them concurrently and where we had this. This is one of those things that you run into because those are dependent on each other.
So what you're saying is instead of any reference to remove that, just say dependent?
You could do that.
Contingent on the improvement of the PD and the related figure, and the related figure.
Subject, yeah.
PD, subject to PD zoning approval.
Okay.
For
So I thought this development agreement, it's a 70-page document, just so everybody knows. It's a very lengthy document, but that is really to initiate, to set some of the ground rules about the basic infrastructure and the utilities and so on and so forth. This has, there's nothing in there other than it says it's going to be residential. There's been no decisions on exactly what that footprint's going to look like or anything else. I know we've seen a concept plan, but concept plans change, and it could change. So that's a different discussion altogether. This is just for the infrastructure. That's what I understood from most of the question.
Right, and so we're thinking that through, and I really like Sarah, but she wants to jump in on this. This is Sarah Landiak, she represents the developer.
Hi, Sarah Landiak, I work with Winston BC here tonight representing Meritage Homes for this development. The PD zoning aspect and the development agreement aspect being taken as close together as possible is kind of the most ideal thing we have. Sometimes that means there's a month apart due to council schedules and such. One of the main reasons for that blank is that if you look at the definition of PD zoning in your document, you will see that the finally approved PD, whatever that might look like, whatever the city council approves, supersedes and replaces that zoning. So hopefully that helps kind of assure you guys that you're definitely going to see the zoning get an opportunity for input and voting as with the And that's automatic. So whatever zoning ordinance the city wants to put its sealed approval on, that replaces that portion, that exhibit to the agreement. So when it comes to considerations that are in this, yes, we've established utilities and infrastructure and financing, but that's also why it's set up so that the final PD zoning will replace it. We can't change the zoning through this agreement whatsoever. We can't legally do that. We're not trying to do that. And the council next month will have the ability to look at the zoning itself.
So if we have, just to level set things a little bit, there's a concept plan there. I presume it's pretty close to accurate, but if council, because we have not looked at it and not kind of opined on whether this layout, that layout, this little bit of park, and we know staff has. We know there's been a lot of back and forth, so we're cognizant of that, and we don't want to second guess staff or do those things. But we do ultimately have to vote it and get happy with it, right? So if there's things to talk about in that PD, we're assuming that there's not too much heartburn around getting to that PD that would make us feel real comfortable about it.
And that's why we brought her to make sure that we're on the same page with that. And so because it is going to be an automatic definition, and John, if you agree as well, so we can get all three sets of agreement, I think you can do a clean approval of the development agreement because that's automatically going to slide in.
Okay. I guess my question is, if y'all bring what was concept, now it looks like the plat, and plat's going to be the plating meets our requirements. If it meets it, we got to approve it. But PD, when we do zoning, and all this uses, you overlay it and hold it to the light, and it matches the concept plan. But we really haven't talked about the concept plan. We say, well, this is okay in the concept plan, but we'd like to move it here, do this, do that, or adjust this in any way. I think that's a good faith discussion and not one that's counterintuitive to the concept plan we're approving here. And I'm kind of trying to clarify what Councilman Bilyeu was saying, is that this is kind of concept and only. I expect that y'all have done enough work that you hold it to light. The PD is going to look like this, and we really haven't got to look a lot at it. And even tonight we haven't gotten to. So if we wanted to massage that some and get to a meeting of the minds, we don't want you to take that as a bad faith discussions, right? We're just trying to come to the table and get across the line for you. So I'm just, if that's a reasonable statement.
Right, and you have the ability and authority to do that.
Okay.
And Mayor, Council, staff, from a staff perspective.
Yeah.
And we know you have not seen this yet. You've tasked us with that. That was part of the change in the PID process.
Right.
If what we've discussed, which at this point the city believes is reasonable and within line to the council goals, objectives, and the policies you've established through the housing mix and those things, I think if the developers came to you at that point with something that was substantially different from where we sit today, staff would have a big issue with that as well.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure, because we're voting one thing that in all other ways they're moving kind of side by side, even though they're different. They're in it kind of, there's a lot of fingers sticking back and forth between them. And I just want to make sure that when we go to deal with this other issue, that everybody's okay to deal on the other issue and not just rubber stamp it necessarily. So.
Well, in this Article 3.1B says the parties agreed to the concept plan was created by the developer for illustrating the boundary, lot mix, and general layout of the development. Final properties, lot mix, and general outlay shall be determined by plat in conformance with the zoning that applies to the property.
Yeah.
We're taking a vote on this. What's the public hearing for if we're voting on this now? What's the purpose of the public hearing, since we're voting on it now, since it seems like we're putting the cart before the horse? we're gonna go ahead and approve this, but let's go ahead and just be formal and do a public hearing, which seems to have no purpose
The
at that
July
point.
7th public hearing versus, yeah.
What's the point of that?
Public hearing, it's for the creation of the PID. It's not for the approval of the development agreement. So they're separate. Does that make sense?
They're two independent documents
Right.
tied to a single bid process. As was mentioned kindly, I appreciate that, is that in a PID, there are some parameters that the city must follow by law that don't allow you really to tie those things together in a single document. So that's why you have a DA. And the DA, the only couple of ties that it does have are the financing portion is the biggest one that says this is how we intend to finance all of these improvements through this PID. The requirement for that public hearing is for the actual creation of the PID, which is where you have the ability to set these items here, the boundaries, the regs that you're going to put in it, how they're recovering the fees, all of that's established in the PID. The DA is just a component of that. They have to be able to, so for the DA, they have to be able to know what they're doing, what we're doing cash-wise, because it directly ties to the financing that they'll be requesting to finish out these boundaries and the other items that are related to the district itself. That's always problematic because they are, and again, the timelines between zoning council, that's why we changed the PID committee, because that was just another layer of trying to schedule. It's just one of those unfortunate things in law that binds our hands sometimes in how we can get things to you.
Yeah, and sorry for the confusion. It's a complex thing for us since we don't have no further or no prior knowledge of this. I guess where I get the stumbling block is it's got too much detail in there. If this is just a friendly handshake saying, yeah, we're gonna do this deal with you and we'll do the PID later, having all this information sort of throws us off because this is what we've seen before in the actual PID, and so I don't know. That's where I'm getting the stumbling block.
Two processes though, right? You really have not seen PIDs at this level yet. You've started PIDs and not completed PIDs. They've usually died with your PID committee. What you've seen in the past are the planned developments, right? Which is a different portion of your zoning that doesn't include the financing of public improvements or anything related. So that's why this can catch you a little off guard, because it has a component that is the district, the planned development portion. But primarily, the PID itself is principally dealing with the financial portion of that project, right? That is their component for that. So that's why this one comes to you in two pieces and different. And the next ones you see, they'll always come in two pieces, and we try to drop them and be further down the road than we are on these. But again, the timing on this did not work the same way that we would have all those documents together tonight.
One way to think about it, Sean, you correct me if I'm mistaken, this is not helpful, but something that we're all familiar with is buying a house, right? And so you have a contract to buy a house, you agree that you're going to sell and you're going to buy a house, but then the buyer might not go get financing. And so if the buyer doesn't have financing and they come to closing and they can't pay, you're not going to sell them the house. So the PID creation piece is that financing piece. And I agree, it's confusing. I'm glad you're asking the question.
So I wasn't as concerned about forming the PID. Exactly what you're saying. I know the mayor and I have dealt with every PID up until this one in the past. So we've seen a lot of these. I'm more concerned about the development agreement because that's not a friendly handshake. That is the agreement, and that's what both parties use to hold the other one accountable. That's the only thing enforceable. And that's why I had a ton of questions about the development agreement. Make sure those, and the way we've done PIDs in the past, that development agreement was done concurrently with really the PD portion, all the standards and everything else. So it all came together at once, and now we're seeing it a little bit different. So I'm relying on you to tell us, does it need to be inserted or not? I mean, because we've always seen that and always had everything there when we went.
Yeah, and Councilman, that's a component of being on the PID committee.
Right.
If those PIDs would have gone further, your peers would be in the same position you're at tonight.
Exactly.
Yeah, because there was still a component of the council that was not involved in those discussions start to finish. So I mean, it's just, again, it's just one of those unfortunate portions of the PID creation process, that there's always going to be a group of people that has the information prior to you, but that's by design too, in the sense that that when we go through that negotiation process, by having the committee negotiate those details where we can per the advisement and direction and the policies that you've given us, it keeps you from possibly binding yourself up or saying something in a meeting. We absolutely expect that when we get to this point that the council has these questions and gets you a chance to answer them. This is just the first presentation of these items to you.
I think the reason for the process the way it is, it has pros and cons. It was nice to be on there and see the pieces come together, but also we were subject to the politicization of the process, where all of a sudden we were beginning to get called because we were on there. So it kind of removed us and made the process run. So I think it has those benefits, but it does have a little bit, it's a little opaque to us till we see it.
Yeah, and we believe it's good for you in that you're the decision makers, right? And by allowing you to make those decisions, again, the PID process goes, for us, as we're getting to deal points, goes a little better, because there's not that back and forth with the decision makers. There's that back and forth with the PID committee, who is trying to craft items that are in line with what we have been directed by this council to do, and by the policies and the legislation that you guys have adopted.
Let me ask a question I asked during work session, now that we have current representative and council here. So one of our PID guidelines was 3-to-1 ratio on debt. And I know that's come up in y'all's discussions, and it's going to be 2-to-1, I think, under this agreement. For us, you know, if we're for the project, which, you know, presumably we're for good development, and hopefully this is good development, we want to see it make. And the more levered it gets, the more chance there is for people to not be able to service the debt and do the things they need to do. And so worst case scenarios, they leave 2x4s standing, you know, and walk away from it because the financing is kind of falling apart on the deal. And those lien ratios are kind of the way we control that risk. Talk to me about why we chose 2-to-1 over 3-to-1, which is our preferred PID guidelines. And there's probably good reasons, but I'd like to understand why we should bend from 3-to-1 to 2-to-1.
So, John mentioned this in our work sessions, but just to kind of reiterate, I think with current market conditions, it's about what they can actually get approved for underwriting. That is the primary reason, as I understood it. And I don't know if you want to add.
I can give a little more color. Meritage does primarily what we call a reimbursement style bid. So you hear, or what you kind of hear your concern, like somebody just sets up a block and disappears. There are a lot of what we call dirt bonds, where a city issues PID bonds before developers really even turn dirt. You know, they might still be in planning stages. It happens. Meritage primarily does reimbursement style bonds for some of the reasons you mentioned. We want the bonds to market really well, because that impacts the interest rate, which impacts, you know, how much of that just goes to paid interest versus can we kind of recoup what we spent. The other aspect with the reimbursement bonds is that you infrastructure in place. Typically, homes have gone vertical. There will be completion of their infrastructure, so there's a lot less concern there. The one other aspect I'll mention, and we build in to make cities comfortable, is that there's a laundry list of reasons why the city would say, we're not issuing bonds for you. And these are reimbursement style bonds, so that's a big deal to the
helps.
developer. They will be performed under this agreement, and then they will ask you to perform. So that puts a lot of trust in the city, but that's also why there's protections. The city can say, oh, we don't see you quite finish number 5 yet, finish that out and come back to us. All that being said, the value chain concept, a lot of cities adopted this 3-to-1 concept initially when PIDs were new and PID policies were becoming popular. That's a really arbitrary market trend that came out of California, of all places. So we're seeing a heavy shift down closer to a 2-to-1. Meritage price bonds last week that were about a 2-to-1 at a 5.8% interest rate, which for PID interest right now is phenomenal. So I don't really have any fear about the lower value to lien here because again, the bond purchasers would have the exact same concerns that we do.
I think I'm going to go back to one of your questions. I did triple check in the development agreement, it's under page 407. The PD zoning, it does automatically, as soon as y'all pass PD zoning, it automatically put in this development agreement without need for an amendment. So just to make sure, if I'm echoing what Sarah said, and agreeing with that. I know there's been a lot of discussion about PD zoning and the concerns there because of the timing.
Okay.
Are we going to have representation on I'm trying to.
I mean, you'll have PID administration, usually P3 picks that up for
Okay,
us.
that's where I was going. Okay.
Yeah.
We actually have had conversations with them, just
couldn't remember.
in case the secretary circuit was ready, that we would have regular check-in meetings of the team so that nobody gets ahead of things and build out everything safe.
And again, that question about will we have somebody on a board, this is not an MDD.
No.
This is a PID, so there,
It's us.
you are the people that represent the city on this end of this side of the deal. They don't set up a separate board. There's no PID board
No.
here. That's a function of an MDD.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions anybody has? 19. So staff has said, and this for kind of public knowledge, the potential conceptual housing mix that we think is being proposed via plat and zoning meets with our overall housing mix kind of goals. Since we haven't seen all the detail, we're trusting staff with that, but that's a big picture kind of value that we want to maintain as a council. So we're not getting out over our skis on, and it's 50-foot, 60-foot frontage type lots, which is pretty standard, but it's not a shrunk down 40, like some people try to push. So, but we're happy with the mix that potentially could come out of some of the next phases of PD zoning and platting.
We believe it is reasonable enough to bring to you. Yes.
I'm just kind
Yeah,
of
no,
restating
those
for
are all
everybody
fair
that
statements.
might listen to this.
Yeah, and one of the comment that we asked about is, I mean, I just flat out said, what are the deviations? Is there any asks outside? And what if I heard correctly, they're minimal. Because the lot widths are real close. There weren't really, really small lots with super density or anything. They were in compliance. And I love it when I see one line that says full compliance with city standards. Oh, they're gonna do everything. But there's always ask, I get it, and there's a little give and take. But so I'm clear, staff, there was nothing that alarmed staff about any major deviation from building standards or any other ask. Okay.
The other thing, which was really the big picture, because we talked about it at work session, but that's not been talked about here. The main reason council would adopt this is the acceleration and expansion, the acceleration of the timeline and the expansion of Bells Road. That's the main reason, because they're already in the city limits. That's one reason we would normally do a PID. You know, extraordinary items, we've got a small bit of CCN, so some of Bolivar water CCN will come into the city, and that's in process. We're trusting that to kind of happen. And then calls for these Bells Road items to happen in certain timings. And so it's an acceleration and expansion of Bells Road, which is probably the biggest reason.
We believe that to be the extraordinary benefit that would bring this to the table.
Yeah. I wanted to clarify that for
Absolutely.
public purposes.
And cost. I mean, usually, in a normal situation, the private sector can do things more efficiently and faster, so it can be cheaper and faster.
Yeah, we believe you'll save money. I mean, you'll still pay for that road over a timeline.
Right.
But yeah, we believe the project overall, you'll save money because of those things, because they're able to stage, and if they do, but because they are willing to do that overlay to buy themselves a little bit of time, they will probably hit the same time that we want to do the remainder of Bells. So you'll save cost on staging if we're using the same group of people. There are a lot of benefits. It could go south. We hope it doesn't. That's not the intent. You know, we don't go into this thinking this may go south. We go into this thinking that it's we have an equitable deal on both sides. We know that on the DA, you will be locked into the DA unless they can't fund their portion. You asked about the PID earlier and what would happen. We had this discussion briefly during break. If the PD, if they don't make on the PD side, there is no agreement at that point. The council could come back and just cancel that agreement because there's no other party on the other end of that. So, I mean, you still have some mechanisms, but they are tied to the success of the developer, right? I mean, as long as they are making and they are funding as they agree to, you're locked in. But if they're doing that, we don't see that as a problem.
Yeah, and I thought you were going to touch on the other thing. I think one of the most important things that you can have in here is triggers with time. And we discussed those in depth, and there are triggers all the way through this that go back to what you're saying with the funding and so forth. But the infrastructure that we're looking for to just tie all that together, that road, if I recall correctly, that's on the front end of this. I mean, pretty much on the front end. It's nowhere near the middle or the back of this development. That infrastructure, Bells Road in particular, is pretty close to the front end.
It's early in the process.
Yeah,
We
very
agree.
early.
And that, you know, we did mention the timelines, and we fell. I'm glad that the discussion on reimbursable bonds came up, because on the reimbursable bond, that's your developer's timeline, right? They're not going to have access to those funds if that stuff is not proceeding on schedule, right? That's why we're escrowing our portion of that money up front to make sure that that's to them as well.
Okay. Any other questions from council?
Those are, I think, the most we could hope for, and it sounds like a lot of work put into this and down in the details. It just bothers me not being a part of all those details, having to read them right now. I've heard everything I need to make a decision now.
Okay. I'd entertain a motion on item 19 then.
So my decision is that council take action and to approve the development agreement between the City of Sanger, Meritage Homes, the developer, PAC Group Limited, and Ron Williamson, Quarter Horses Inc., the owners, to develop a residential development utilizing a public improvement district.
Okay, I've got a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Got a motion by Councilman Billiou, seconded by Councilman Gann, to approve a development agreement between the City of Sanger Meritage Homes, the developer, Pack Group Limited and Ron Williams Quarter Horses Inc., the owners, to develop a residential development utilizing a public improvement district. Is that need to say subject to PD zoning improvement? We don't, right? All right. Do we need to say, relate that to that figure 1? Because I thought that's what we were.
It's in the agreement.
Okay, so it's in there like you said, so we don't have to say it. Got it. All right. So it stands as I read it. Any other discussion by council or comment? Okay. All in favor of the motion as presented indicate by raising your hand. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay. Council, that brings us, let's go ahead and deal with 24, which is consideration of possible action. Thank you, guys. Thanks for hanging with us.
So they're gonna start building the road tomorrow?
Overlay.
All right.
I thought they were gonna get started now.
Yeah, that's where they're headed.
Yeah.
All right, item 24, consideration possible action on ordinance 06-1825, amending the budget for the 24-25 fiscal year and authorizing amended expenditures as provided, providing for the repeal of all ordinances in conflict, providing for a cumulative clause, providing for a severability clause, and providing a savings clause, and establishing an effective date. We're on item 24.
Yes. I was on
So this is,
and do have a
yeah,
question
go ahead.
for you, John. Or Mr. City Manager, pardon me. Okay. I understand the 50,000 increase for the amendment, and then I understand the 200, but is it 200 or is it 400?
200 one way.
That's just an entry, right?
It's a 0, right?
Yeah, we'll go back. You got 500 that moves up to 550 in the adjustment.
Yes.
That second item has to do with your engineering fees because we've had an increase in development. Our third-party fees have gone up. And so that third-party fee top in the revised budget, that's a revenue item. So because we have spent more money in engineering, we've taken in more money. So we're amending your revenue to accommodate the increase in the contract professional fees related to your engineering. But the 550 there is just a reallocation of some of the dollars that were already in the senior program. So there was not really a revenue adjustment that needed to be made for that portion of the budget request.
So the top one's actually an increase in the budgeted item.
That's correct. It's
And the
50.
And the 50 is, the other two are a net identical. It's just you're grossing up the top and increasing the expense. It's
Yeah,
still
you're
nets to
increasing
a
the-
net of 335.
Yeah, again, you had that 335, that original budget item at 0 in
Right.
your third-party fees, yes. You're washing that out through the additional revenue log, you know, that when we go through and put that in the ledger, it's a wash.
So for a simpleton like me, what's the ask?
We're asking to increase that original budgeted item to 535 from 335 to cover additional third-party fees with our engineers. Currently, that's half that we use typically. We have some bureau money, I believe, that we still do, but this is primarily your third-party engineering fees. So we're revising that budget to show a revenue increase. That top line there is 200,000 in the additional revenue that we're going to show as an increased revenue in your budget to accommodate that change to 535.
But that revenue is already being netted currently against the
That's
three.
correct.
To get to the 335.
We're just moving
We're
it
just
from
breaking them out.
miscellaneous revenue
Right.
to third-party fees. So we're just reallocating that line from where it rests, because when we take those in, they usually come in as miscellaneous revenue and go back to your general fund. We're just reallocating that dollar amount that already exists into those third-party fees. That's correct.
Okay, so here's what threw me off. The very first one is, so the 24-25 budget included the 500K for the improvement. That's why I understood the 50. It is slightly over 500K for what we just approved tonight.
Right.
The modular,
Right.
the demolition, and the paving. But where's the 350 you're talking about? I don't know.
335.
335.
Yeah, right now,
Go to
you're,
page 506.
yeah,
Okay.
your original budget it was budgeted at 335 for us to expend on contract and professional services. So we're increasing that by 200,000 to 535 to accommodate those changes in those expenses because we've done more development and used more of those third-party costs. So that money is coming again through revenue that is already in your bank account.
Okay.
These are ledger entries.
I did see that, but I didn't even look at that. I was looking at the top one, says
Further
original
up.
budget, and then there's another, down there, it says original budget.
Yeah, one's the revenue line, one's the expenditure line. That's why. it
So
can
you're
be
increasing
confusing.
revenue and increasing expense. The net effect is 335.
That's correct.
Gotcha.
The-
Okay.
the extra-
0 and minus 335 is the same as 200 minus 535.
The extra 50, where's that coming from?
The extra 50 was, it's already within the capital plan. The reason we approved that is because it is a capital budget item. And in order to be in compliance with a capital item, we need you to approve that additional expenditure as a capital project.
It wasn't assigned before?
It was assigned, but it was assigned on projects that we had cost savings on. So it was budgeted. It was just not budgeted as capital for that specific purpose.
Right.
Any other questions?
No.
Council, what's your pleasure on 24?
I make a motion, we approve ordinance 06-18-25, amending the budget for 2024-2025 fiscal year and authorizing the amended expenditures as providing for the repeal of all ordinance conflict and everything else related to it.
Okay, I've got a motion. Do I hear a second? Second. Okay, I've got a motion by Councilman Chick, seconded by Councilman Burris, approving ordinance 06-1825, amending the budget for the 24-25 fiscal year and authorizing amended expenditures as provided, providing for the repeal of all ordinances in conflict, providing a cumulative clause, providing for a severability clause, and providing a savings clause, and establishing an effective date.
Yes.
Any other discussion? All in favor indicate by raising your hand. Passes unanimously. That'll bring us to item 25. Consideration possible action on resolution 2507, nominating a representative to the DENCO 911 District Board of Managers for a 2-year term beginning October 1, 2025. You have 2 resumes in your packet there.
Left side's voting for Steve Southwell.
What's that?
Left side over here is voting for Scott Southwell.
I'm
Or
pretty
Steve's.
indifferent. Any other discussion anybody wants to have on, is that because he's a Marine?
Yeah,
Got 2 Marines on the left?
yeah.
It's kind of like Aggies. Aggies and Marines. All right, you have the resumes. Any other? Both gentlemen.
I make a motion,
Okay.
we nominate in resolution 2025-07 for the DENCO 911 District Board of Managers for a 2-year term beginning October 1st, 2025. It's our candidate nominee, Steve Southwell.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
I've got a motion by Councilman Chick, seconded by Councilman Bilyeu, nominating Steve Southwell pursuant to Resolution 2025-07 as our representative to DENCO 911 District Board of Managers for a 2-year term beginning October 1, 2025. Staff, any other input on that?
No.
Okay. Any other comments by anybody? Okay. All in favor of the motion indicate by raising your hand. Passes unanimously. Okay, and then I kind of have a question here. We have an executive session item that we may have an attorney on the hook for.
I do have an attorney on the hook. The executive session item itself should be brief, but we will need to contact the attorney because it is an attorney-client conversation.
Yeah.
So if we could do the executive session, I can brief you very quickly on the item, and then we can contact Mr. Vassar, and he can answer any other questions that you have.
Okay, then, so I guess in lieu of, I mean, we got a whole host of
Yeah.
ordinance type questions.
Correct.
The question is, a bunch of people have sat around, staff.
You still
which
have, yeah.
I know, we still have them, but there was also a good number of questions there, so they're sitting here. I don't know how long we have the attorney on the hook, given that it's nearly 9.
Well, I pushed him to 8:30 earlier.
Okay,
Yeah, no, I do respect that staff is here.
here,
I really believe that the attorney conversation should be much briefer than the other conversations we
conversation.
have.
And then I guess that's my question as representative of staff, and you can look around and poll the room.
Yeah.
Staff has sat here through this. We haven't gotten to ask many questions, and we're gonna be, after the attorney's over, we're gonna be looking at 9:10, 9:15. The question is, how bad does staff want to? I think council, as usual, will push through on this if we need to. I'm just asking how, I'm trying to.
The staff is here to answer your questions.
So you'd like to move it on tonight
Yeah,
in lieu of putting it to
yeah.
another meeting?
I mean, staff is here to answer
All
those
right.
questions. We understand that there's questions still to be had, but yeah, staff is.
And I
is at your
appreciate
service.
staff bearing with us. We just had so many outside folks that needed to get them
Right.
dealt with. So you're recommending that we go to the city attorney executive
I
session
would
next?
ask that we do so.
All right, okay, that's what I'm gonna do then. So I appreciate staff's forbearance with us, sorry. All right, so we are going to move then to executive session pursuant to Opens Meeting Act, Chapter 551. City Council will meet in a closed executive session in accordance with Texas Government Code 551.071, consultation with attorney for deliberations regarding legal, A, pending or contemplated litigation, or B, a settlement offer, or 2, a matter in which the duty of the attorney to the governmental body under the Texas disciplinary rules of professional conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflicts with this chapter. This is regarding the Laguna Azure Sewer Certificate of Convenience and Necessity, CCN. We will move into executive
not legally.
session at 8:50 PM. Yeah, let's do it. Okay. All right, this will call the council out of executive session at 9:20 PM and back into regular session. Let me make a note here. Okay, and going backwards and looking at our agenda, council, I believe we've covered all the items that were under action, and we're now back to items 9 through 14. I believe that's all we lack at this point, related to our codes of ordinances. We've got them all broken up here. I guess we want to deal with them just one at a time, or, I mean, can we, what's the most efficient way to do this?
I think you could probably have a holistic discussion here.
Yeah, that's
and
what I
then-
think.
And
Then
then
we vote.
and then handle them one at a time after.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I'd invite staff to introduce and discuss items 9 through 14, all the code of ordinances, to open it up and allow council to ask any questions they may have on items in there. You introduced most of those through the public hearing and we have many of those in our packets, those same bullet points, so I don't think we have to rediscuss those. I approached this, and it's probably not a very holistic approach, but they are so voluminous that I did, and we've had some discussions, but not a few things that I wanted to approach it from the standpoint, there's a few things in the past that I wanted to kind of raise as issues and see how they fit into this.
Absolutely, we have Aaron Sparrow here as well to help.
Okay, so in signs, it's a long time ago, but neon signs behind glass windows, we were thinking like alcohol signs, big blaring, 20 or 30 of them, you view them through the window, and that wasn't really the imagery we were looking for as a council back in the day, a long time ago, and so there was some adjustment to our sign ordinance related to signs that you see through the glass, and I couldn't figure out where that might be dealt with, if at all.
I don't think it was in our previous ordinance or in this one.
There was something, because we dealt with it.
I think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I could be, that the alcohol sales themselves say that signs have to be back away from the windows, so many feet.
And maybe that's where we dealt with it. Okay.
CABC has
In section 5 of the zoning ordinance,
Okay.
which is prohibited signage, you'll find the language, luminous sketches, tubing signs.
Yes.
Is in there, and that they are, when within an enclosed building, behind glass and visible outside of the building from the public right of way through a window, they're prohibited, except unless they are open signs. So open signs essentially are the only type of.
Open, closed. Okay.
Correct.
And that really just been changed.
So that's section 5.
So that dealt with that one, so that was something we had dealt with in the past. Kind of these floppity signs, wiggly man signs, things they put out and do. Could you comment about that type of,
Following the temporary signs.
right?
Go ahead. No, go right ahead.
We do have language in there regarding wind-driven signs. And I'm trying to get to that. Apologize for being on the phone here for that. But when a wind device sign is included, or a wind-driven sign rather, is included in this ordinance. For example, under prohibited signage, miscellaneous, which is subsection H of the 5, signs that, for example, project above the facial wall of any structure, strings of light bulbs not permanently mounted on a rigid background, used in connection with commercial premises for commercial purposes, other than traditional holiday decorations, and wind-driven signs shall be prohibited.
Okay. All right. I'm just thinking about the sightliness and unsightliness thereof. All right, we've, as we're growing, these, they drive up with their trailer full of home for sale signs. How's that dealt with here?
So those are also temporary signs,
Yeah.
those are real estate signs, and those are also, I consider temporary signs. But non-premises, real estate, directional signage, many different cities, and oftentimes we'll look at equivalent cities, similar characteristics there. And so I can say with confidence that it's.
But how's that number calculated? Because a lot of cities will use a formula, and it's not just square footage.
It was those
Occupancy, it's hours of operation, it's all of those different things. So restaurants may have a higher
Based on
requirement.
Yes,
Then,
that's what I saw.
yes, and so what are we using?
It will vary based on these. So if it's, for example, a bank or a restaurant, you'll see that it's going to be based on, it can be based on the number of employees. Warehouses, for example, will have fewer parking spots. Certain manufacturers will have more. But again, it will vary based on the uses.
Okay, let me that was an open-ended question. Let me narrow a little bit. We're not just saying every business has to have X number. We have a formula to calculate.
Correct.
And it varies by whatever their type is. I saw all of that. That's the reason I asked a general question, because it was too hard to ask a specific one. But as long as we're in the range of other comparable cities and we're not being onerous, I just want to make sure we're being fair.
We wanted to make sure we're not overparking, because parking lot that you
Okay.
zero good, it's not being used.
Well, it does become very restrictive on somebody trying to move in here. And out on the fringe, whether it's too low or too high. Too low, I mean, that's a different set of problem. Usually there's too many requirements that you want to go there. It's a great spot and everything, but you can't because there's not enough parking. Listen, that's true in every city you go to, they're going to have some of it, but some cities are flexible. And I know we ran into that when the 455 project happened, and it took away a lot of the front parking in those businesses. That was a real concern, but as long as we are in line with the cities our size and the growth we're experiencing, we'll be fine.
Correct. It's actually in the on-street parking building requirements where there is a table schedule that defines that. So
Dwellings too.
Right.
Right.
So
Yeah.
again, it varies based on use, but it is in line with traffic.
Okay, on parking, we've run into the case like boats, RVs, extraneous things, right? Where there's paved area. I've actually had people say, well, paved area, can I just put the 4 wheels on 4 pavers and it's paved area, right? I know you can't, but we've dealt with that issue. And and so I'm making sure that we're handled under that standpoint where it's like the square footage of the, I don't know.
And it has to have a path all the way to it.
Yeah, a path all the way to it, but I didn't see where it said equivalent to the square footage of the vehicle, of the coverage area of the vehicle. As long as it's there somewhere, I'm good with it. I just want to make sure, because we have had people try to skirt the rules by saying, well, it's on a paved area, it's just 2 by 2, paver. All right, okay. The architectural style, the scoring that we have had is, again, it was so big, and this is an issue with our design standards. Is that scoring still in there to get us to our architectural, varied architecture? Yes. Okay. So that's all still in place?
That can't be, you can't.
I can't require.
Residential units, right? You can't do that in residential district. But historic district, you can regulate your siting and also.
Well, you can't regulate material.
Materials, but we can say if you had a porch, what we did is we said, here's a total score you got to get to. And you can get there these myriad of ways. Porches, dormers, whatever. And as long as That's how we've gotten variability and some character to our dwellings without saying they have to be all masonry.
Ramey, is that a separate document?
That is a separate.
Correct.
All right. I'm just making sure that we're good there because I didn't see that. All right, last one. Well, maybe not last one. Game room. I think I found where that it equates to gambling establishment, which is only allowed in PD with a specific use permit. So it's not in industrial anymore. We talked about it in retreat, and I think I found that, so I think we're good there. Just wanted to ratify that. Okay. All right. I did get, and I forwarded it to John, I think he's probably forwarded it to you, from one of our P&Z commissioners, a question regarding several things that he felt like were a little more in people's business. I would just tout it like that, and maybe we're restrictive than, government's deal, but it's one of them's on our page 284, I believe, which is nuisance structures with insufficient ventilation and illumination. You want to clarify that one for us? What's the real intent there? Because that one, it does look a little out of context. I mean, yeah.
Well, that particular section that he's talking about has to do with a definition.
A what?
It's a definition.
Yeah.
Which, of course, the definitions in and of itself are not enforced.
Right.
But that is part of one of the leading criteria that we can use to determine what is a dangerous building.
Got it.
So like ventilation, X number of square footage structure can have X amount of calculated ventilation, which is in the International Residential Code. Same with illumination. Every habitable room in a residence has to have some illumination. So.
The same thing with the front and back doors.
That's correct.
If it's an egress door, it has to have some.
Okay. All right. So that was that question. There was one, I think it's on 305. And I think this deals with the Mary Kay Tupperware question, whether we're getting people. We said we handled that one because I think John commented on that in work session briefly.
The states
kind of,
and it was an immediate enactment.
Okay.
So those things are.
305's, page 305, that question he asked is handled. There's a page 301 that relates to like barbecue grills and outside play toys and stuff like that in the front of houses. Having received this, I was out mowing this weekend, and I happened to see somebody roll their barbecue out on the pad of their driveway, cook their deal, and I know our intent is if they were to just leave stuff laying around everywhere. I'm pretty certain they rolled it back in after it cooled down. So I'm just kind of making sure kind of how you can never legislate everything exactly how you're going to do it, right? So just, I think common sense hopefully will lead us toward a reasonable enforcement effort on those type of items.
And that really relates to outside storage.
Yes. Their barbecue grill, right. Out in their parking lot or whatever. Right?
Keeping in mind that we are never looking just to write tickets.
For the same.
We're looking to get reasonable compliance.
Yep.
So everybody can enjoy their premises.
Right. Yeah. Okay. That's my questions.
So, was there any changes made to the SUP process from what we have now? There hasn't been any updates in laws or anything else? I mean, that's very
No, I think
important.
the SUP process still follows the same guidelines
Okay.
that it did.
Well, and every time we've done those, we've put an ending date on them, so they come up, and that's an onerous, that's on us for when we do them. Right, we can design them
I want them,
a certain way.
personally, I want them, I want it to come here just so we have a finite time and understand it. Because that SUP will ride with the land and making those indefinite. It'll create a patchwork that I don't think we're after. I think we're trying to clean this up. So I just want to make sure there were no changes to that process.
I think the only procedural changes that were made that impact council in that way as far as processes go is the plating process, which we handed to P&Z. All your other processes that required council approval were kept intact for that purpose.
I'm gonna drill down just one, peel the layer back one more. Were there any additions throughout any of these codes that require an SUP that didn't before? Does that make sense? There's probably quite a few. I remember seeing some. I remember us talking about it at the workshop. I have not gone through every one of these to look to see what requires an SUP now.
Correct. So again, we would refer back to the schedule detail, which will identify uses that are defined that would require.
Could you tell us what page that's on?
Yeah. The big one that I know that we had our eyes on was casinos.
Yeah.
You know, that
I
was
saw that.
Yeah, that one was added with an PD and an SUP.
We talked about that one at the workshop.
Correct.
It starts on your page 216.
Which part is that in, which chapter?
Chapter 14,
Chapter 14. Okay, give me one moment.
but it's the page number of the agenda, 216.
Yeah, I'm looking at it in a different format where I pull each one up. So, chapter 14, I'm here. Okay?
So you'll note it's a color coded table. And
What section?
this is section 2, use of land and buildings. Section 2.
Article 14.
Are you referring to the actual PDF document?
Yeah, it's 128 pages. I'm just trying to note that.
You're looking at Article 3, Section 4, the footer on page.
Article 3, section. Which one?
I'm sorry, Section 2. Section 2 is use of land and buildings.
Okay, I got you.
And we refer to the next page, subsection C, stability table. It's a color-coded table based on the district's line. And emergency, raise cell, the letter S, the use that requires assistance to use for earning. So we identify going through the ordinance and uses that are not previously communicated to this specific table. So if you read off the top of my head, I can recount where we are right now, include works for gambling rooms, and then also tattoo shops and smoke shops.
Where do, the payday lending stuff, where's that landing? That's another issue we've dealt with in the past. Did anything change around payday lending, where they can place it?
Under your retail and related services, so each of these is going to is grouped by function. You'll see that there is a permitted, it's permitted for cash and access for payday loan offices within regional commercial and retail.
So it's permitted in RC, which is retail, commercial? Regional, got it. What's NC? Neighborhood commercial and urban, residential. Okay.
The beginning of this Article 3, Section 1 is about the crosswalk. So you may refer to it as a different term, but there is a table which shows you what the district name was or is in its current state and what it's being reclassified as. You can use that as a comparator.
Yeah. Do you know what our allowance is for that now? Because I thought there was kind of like sexually oriented businesses. I thought there was, or maybe we just had it down to a certain tighter use. It's
It
tight.
may have been tighter in the current ordinance. We haven't had any of those in.
I know, but that's because we had it held so dang tight, you know. We allowed it in the places, we allowed it, but we didn't allow it a lot. Because it's basically, it takes
I know
away.
that the ordinance is only allowed industrial.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, payday lending's a question.
I think those are in industrial as well.
But it was in payday lending, advanced payday loan, advanced payday loan was in 14A of your existing.
Yeah.
It's under your use of land and buildings.
Where could you do it?
I will tell you here in just a second. Maybe I will tell you. It was a special use permit.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. If I can get the- In business two, B2, cash advance or payday loan office, special use permits, B2.
And that's it?
That's where it was, yeah. And it was listed, it was defined, rather than bank and loan, it was defined as cash advance or payday loan office.
And that's the way this says it. Yeah. I hadn't thought about that one, but then again, I'm seeing it. There's ability to put an S instead of a P in and/or restrict it to the closest thing to B2,
Yeah, the closest thing to B2 would be your RC.
RC. I mean, I'd be inclined to make it look like what we had. I think we did that on purpose. I think there was a,
So is that something you would like us to do?
I mean, I'm one person on council and I don't get to vote. I'm just saying, I know we've been there before, and it,
Just say that one more time, what the actual ask is.
for cash advance and payday loan offices to move from being, they're permitted in 3 different places currently now, moving them to one type of zoning and make that a SUP instead of a P.
Yes, we did do that, and we also did not want them in the historical district, i.e. downtown. Because that all came up at the same time, and it was a very limited, finite
Yep.
place and way to
First
go.
time I thought about that.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm seeing S's across all of these things, and I do have some questions about those.
Can we clarify again, the closest district to the previous cash advance?
Would be
RC. So if I understand correctly, there's a possibility that council would like that changed. Cash advance payday loan office allowable in RC zoning districts by SUP only.
Yep. Unless somebody says there's a legal reason we can't be that restrictive. Yeah. I mean, it's allowed. I think that's all we have to do.
Can you remind me what NC is?
Neighborhood commercial.
Okay, so sexually oriented businesses are allowed in RC, NC, and industrial with an SUP. Why is it the neighborhood commercial? Tell me what that is.
Your neighborhood commercial is going to be your pocket areas of commercial, closer to your neighborhoods. So like if you look at our comp plan.
Yeah, that would not be my intent. I mean, I'm just telling you.
Okay.
And if we're going to be that restricted on the payday loans, I think we need to address SOBs as well.
I agree.
So do you want to take it out of, where would you like it? Because technically it's in RC, NC, and I with an SUP.
Put it in the I.
You want to just limit it to the I?
Here's my
Hide it behind
preference,
that.
all the way from residential as we can. That's my preference.
Is that?
You're fine. Somebody may want to take notes besides us because you'll want to, unless you want to
Approve
kick this
this
back.
with these changes.
You'll want to, yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
Again, there's no
This is our
pressure
ask,
to.
this
yeah.
is just our ask, and
Yeah.
I'm relying on you to see if there's any, if there's something out there legislatively or anything. I'm just, if you want my thoughts, that's all I'm providing, it's just my thoughts. There was,
And again, I said that, council, again, there's no pressure or expectation that you have to pass this evening. However, if you choose to, I want to make sure you have your notes.
Yeah, let me ask, with legislature having been at work, is there any particular ones of these that are more timely and need to get passed in order to avoid signing or the implementation of legislation in any way? So we need to do them now
As far as the codes,
as far as what's coming.
you were probably better passing or not passing. And if there's not been major legislative changes that would have us recreate a whole new document.
Yeah.
There may be some minor changes that would have to take place. I would be more concerned with the legislation if we pass this portion and then didn't pass this. If we pass your subdivision and then didn't pass your zoning or vice versa.
It all matches up.
In the sense that you don't want to call attention to anything that would give the appearance that you're trying to manipulate your
Yeah.
systems.
So we can pass, we're making a couple of notes, and if it's limited to a couple of notes, we'll just adjust our motion appropriately. But we have to know where we're adjusting it, which one of these action items we're adjusting.
Correct.
But if we get to where there's 4, 5, 10, whatever, then we may want to pass them and then come back with, we can come back and amend later, get 99% of this handled and then come back
And
with.
then come back and make an amendment to this code.
this document is a living document, this is just a great starting point to catch us up. We can make changes in the next meeting if we pass it.
Yeah, I think we should discuss as long as council wants to discuss, and we may get across the line totally.
Yeah.
But if it starts adding up, and it,
Yeah.
So, sorry, SUPs have just always been a big deal to me, so I may be making a mountain of a molehill. But there's a lot of S's on here, and I get it when we're in some institutions and country clubs, I get all that. But up in the residential area, primary residential uses, when you get into swimming pools, I'm just trying to understand the thought process. If somebody should be able to get a permit to put a pool at their house and not have to come to us or anything else for a special use permit.
So with swimming pools in these particular districts, you see the ranch district, multifamily.
Yeah, like multifamily, that's usually an amenity that they do.
there it is.
But
Found it, okay.
I just,
As a home occupation, now, you'll notice there's two differences here between swimming pools, swimming pool as a home occupation, and
Swimming pool private.
wait.
Was
So that's a
home
very
occupation.
clear distinction. Okay, so what does that mean?
so a home occupation, you have to define.
Like therapy? Is that what you're saying? If they use it for therapeutic, or they have people over for rehab, or is that what you're talking about?
Or they take lessons in it, or
Like a swim school.
swim school, whatever it is.
So you need a residential swimming pool for whatever reason.
So if somebody has a swimming pool and their teenage kid who's a really good swimmer in the summer makes their money by giving swimming lessons to kids for a couple of months, is that technically a special use permit, or is that not an ongoing really commercial use? That's a private use that's kind of ancillary to their, just asking, because I can.
There's a definition for customary home occupation, and the definitions the terms we have.
Okay.
a scenario that carried on in existing structure of the property by a member of the business family, not more than 2 employees. One of whom must be the owner of the business being conducted at the location.
So if it's it's fine then.
Yeah, if it's just a single.
If it's, I mean, this is a member of the owner's family giving very minor swim lessons for a couple of months in the summer to make extra money before going off to college or whatever else, right?
So it's yeah, basically, like, you're limiting the use of a home or residence as it is.
As a really commercial establishment. That's not very commercial in nature, even though there's a little money made. Got it. As long as you think you're okay, because I can think of them.
I got a couple. Yeah.
And again, that will be tested a little bit because the home occupation rule just changed.
No, I don't think that
Yeah.
somebody's home in their pool, if they're going to have swim lessons, I don't think.
That's not our business. That's kind of where I'm going.
Yeah, and then the next one right below it says a private tennis court. We gotta have special use permits. I mean, that's what I don't.
Right, and I do want to actually set back, and we do have another definition specifically for swimming pools, or swimming instruction as an occupation.
Okay.
Where the teaching of swimming in a private swimming pool in a residential area, the offering of swimming instruction in a private pool is subject to the approval of a specific use permit, which may specify operating conditions and standards, and it may limit the number of students in operating time. So, and again, it goes back to operating a business from your home, during hours where, it may impact neighbors.
Okay.
Okay, but having it here, if it turns out, I mean, if it's high school kid giving swim lessons, that's one thing. If you're running a no-kidding business out of there, multiple employees, then you get into parking and, I mean.
All that.
Then, you step in and
This is
say,
a common
hey,
sense
you
deal.
need to go to city council. Okay, so we're leaving it there to give you some teeth if it becomes a nuisance. Now I'm tracking. See, you bring me in late, I got a lot of questions. No, it's good. You've been prepping this throughout this.
I think you can do, I read somewhere at-home daycares are fine, but up to there's a certain, like, level, right?
But the government of kids, the state regulates that.
States.
Yeah, here again, here's where we're at with this. The home occupations, right, will change. I mean, they're very stringent now on what we can regulate, right? It's very much in favor of the home-based business. On the SUPs that you see here, you will not see those unless it meets the criteria for us to regulate it. If it's here and you're if you are running a home-based daycare and you have there's obviously it's home-based, somebody that lives at that residence has to be there. That's part of the criteria. You can't have, there's a portion of home-based business that's a little different with daycares because they let you have a different amount of employees. Now there's the new rule indicates that you can't have more employees than you have residents. It has to meet, if we say you can only have, 6 blood relatives in the family, that's the number of your staff essentially, as we understand it right now. Still has to be interpreted by law. If you generate more parking than usual, you park on the streets, you can't park in the driveways. If it's not, if the business you want is not compatible with the neighborhood, it looks like we still are allowed to regulate that. So there's another layer here that the state has put on that's in effect now that says that we, even with teeth, we don't really get to interpret this outside the state's regulation, which means we have these items here and the only time you will see them is if it's actually a case that we can regulate. Outside of that, these people, as you said, it's not necessarily our business what they're doing. It's when their business only becomes our business when they run into an area of the law, the state law, that says this needs to be regulated, and we've left that with the cities to regulate it. And if that's not enough confidence, you can always just,
I think as usual, I mean, we're looking for staff, and I think staff will do it, apply. I mean, we're giving some teeth, but then applying common sense. You just can't, you can't legislate common sense, and so we have to give some teeth, and then we apply some common sense to it, and go on down the road.
And we can't, there's no way you can cover everything.
Right.
So we fill in the best we can. Still make that an unusual situation that's not covered.
So, Ravi, do you think you're gonna see anything, due to the legend? You know, there's a P, and there's this little hyphen, and an S, and then that little asterisk. There's a big difference, because I went back and looked at these and noticed that there's a lot of the hyphens, and then there's some asterisks and hyphens in there. One of them means prohibited, and the other one, you're good to go.
Well, the hyphen is prohibited. The asterisk just means there's some
No,
special circumstances.
I know that, but if, I'm looking at it at 100% here, and I couldn't tell the difference until I blew it up.
I got what you're saying.
So, I mean,
Do we need a different symbol? is what
well,
you're asking?
I don't know if it's a little X for prohibited or something. I did something minor like that. Is that gonna be an issue for her? Because nobody's gonna come to me.
Right, I wouldn't recommend an X just because it could be used for something else. We use a different dash, so that's just a dash, we use an M dash.
Or just put a big one or something, just because they're both really tiny, and I had to really look hard to see that it can be, what is it that's different? Oh, it cannot be used. Okay, I got it.
And now this is, PDF also, I think if you're referencing is specifically for offline use, print out PDF, in your ordinance online. You see that properly.
So let's, to that point, I mean, the one that I was looking at just then, I gotta get back to it.
Well, go back to section.
Yeah, I know, that's exactly what I was looking at. So why are there stars instead of dashes all through all those other types?
There's additional regulations, if the regulations are fine, unless referred to that district, or additional regulations specific to that.
If it's not allowed in that district, why do we care whether there's any regulation to that district?
That placeholder is, that's a placeholder essentially for any future regulations that we would initiate. They also can be changed to hyphens as well. Here, this is similar to, those aspects are similar to what the ordinance we currently have.
So if we, what would we be referencing on those asterisks if I went to RD and there's an asterisk there, it says there's something else that applies, but if I don't permit it except for by SUP in I, under our revised recommendation, why do I even have an asterisk there? Why not just dash that thing, especially on
If
section?
you don't want to put it that way, we can certainly just dash those.
Well, I think we treat that like you did those.
221.
Yeah, it's 3-10, 3-10. Is the page number.
Yes.
221, yeah.
So would the council's desire, should you just dash those?
I think we would prohibit them in all zoning districts except for I,
And that's,
and then with an SUP.
Yeah.
And that would put dashes across the board. Okay. What other questions? Any other questions, Gary?
Just real quick, what did we do with traffic and vehicles? And what are we talking about there? Because I did not make it down to that one.
We just made some simple amendments. That particular chapter is health and sanitation. We'll track, no, you said traffic and vehicle, by the way.
Yes. Agenda item 14, chapter
Yes.
12.
We made sure that we defined parking on improved surfaces.
Mhm.
We prohibited vehicle storage. We made it unlawful for you to live in a vehicle or
Right,
have sleeping
was there
quarters
any-
for the storage of trash.
But vehicles are supposed to be parked either on the road, driveway, improved surface, but not the yard. Did we specifically say that?
Yes.
Okay, good. You know what? That's probably the shortest one, and that's the one I didn't get to. Okay.
I haven't made it through all of these, but just something that popped into my head. Do we have anything about hoarding homes?
About what?
A hoarder's home? Something.
Unsanitary? I mean, would any of that come into play? You can't really look in somebody's home, right?
No, you mean you can't do that, but
Not on the inside.
We can on the outside, but we can see.
what could you, okay, let's say that you saw all sorts of rats or infestations around your house. That still wouldn't give you any cause or anything to actually take a look inside. Okay.
Even if it was a problem, cause you to warrant to go inside to see if it was unfit for human habitation, we have to get a warrant. to go in
Okay.
there. And then that's when you get into the major building structure and all those things that's listed as what may constitute unfit for human habitation.
Okay, I get it. I hadn't even thought about the whole warrant situation.
Okay.
And remember, just final thought, I see where it says, it identifies recreation vehicle. I mean, because we spent a lot of time, because one of the issues we had were not just the way people park, but trailers, whether they were attached or detached, and having, some of these trailers are parked, and, I mean, they're very low to the ground if they're not attached to a vehicle and around town. Is that still a part of this specifically about trailers? Not just travel trailers attached or, okay, perfect.
Even if they're in driveways or anything like that?
No, they can put them in driveways.
This actually says things.
It was on the street we were talking about.
Public streets,
Yeah.
Parking lot.
Yeah.
they don't have motors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if it's a trailer you use all the time, it's, that you move, and we're not technically looking for that, as long as it's on your property. We don't want to, okay, let me take a step. We don't want your tractor trailer parked in your driveway. It needs to be either entirely inside or your backyard, somewhere like that.
On an improved surface.
On an improved surface. Yes.
Screened and then an improved surface.
Probably gonna get some pushback on that deal.
Yeah, and we were, and the way it was overnight parking. I mean, people are gonna come, they're gonna unhook, they're gonna do that. But we'll get complaints for, it's set there for a week. And some of these trailers are so low to the ground and turn, I mean, it does become hazardous. And,
It allows, yeah, like you can, I've read, you can have visitors in their travel trailer at your house for a set number of days, 15 or something like that, I can't remember. And then they, so it's not permanent living quarters, but if grandpa and grandpa want to come over for 2 weeks, bring their travel trailer, briefly park, not lease out a spot and have the cost, they can do that. But if it stays for like 3 months or whatever it is, we've at least got some teeth to kind of,
yeah,
Okay.
and people are gonna have different time, we had to just roll.
Yeah.
2 weeks is reasonable that they're
Right.
coming, staying, and then leaving.
Right.
But
and again, common sense. If he walks up and talks to him, says, oh, they're leaving tomorrow, well, fine, he'll come back tomorrow and look,
Yeah.
sure enough, they left. Right,
Most of that's typically holiday times and
right,
those stuff.
sure.
okay.
But it's a good starting point, and once again, they don't just go let along write a ticket. There's some conversations that go on, people have an opportunity to correct it.
I've got a letter.
Okay. Oh, y'all know each other, huh?
I got one in the mail once.
And again, we don't typically use the phrase common sense.
Yeah.
We use compliance because there's multiple ways to get compliance.
Oh, goodness,
I
yeah.
don't think it's ever our intent to write citations.
Yeah,
That's-
yeah, right.
That's not the intent. Our intent is to, like John said, be compliance.
Yeah.
And if we can work with the homeowner to do that, that's what we want to do.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I mean, he's evaluated on the improvement of the appearance around town, not the number of citations.
Not the number of citations.
Correct?
If we could get the improvement without one citation, I think that that's a check on his back.
Yeah. Any other questions?
No, I'm-
Okay, so I would, the two changes we had were in the table. The table is associated with which action item?
Well, it's chapter 14, so that would be.
It's your zoning, it's gonna be item 11, which is your
11.
consideration possible action.
So all the
612.
other, so 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, all those could be, if we're happy at the moment with those, you know, council can look at this and we can always come back
can always
and
change.
modify, but 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, we can take up as they stand. And then on 11, we need to say, you know, payday lending and cash advances shall only be allowed in RC with an SUP, and sexually oriented businesses shall be prohibited in all categories except I with an SUP. And I think that's what we've talked about, and I think that's the only,
Change the asterisk.
that's, when we say prohibited, it's gonna make it a dash.
It's gonna be the bigger dash.
Yep.
gonna
Or
be the
bold. I noticed that if you just make either bigger or bolder, it's something that really stands out, that's all. And that's a technical,
Yeah, so, anyway.
yeah.
All
Can you
right,
change that color
We can absolutely.
to a red dash, perhaps, something like that?
The one caveat to that, if I may, is if you use red, it's gonna be rinses out like white.
Agreed.
It's gonna be gray, it's gonna make it.
Yeah, agreed.
yeah, so just
Y'all figure,
leave that to y'all, yeah, yeah,
We'll figure that out.
yeah, okay.
yeah.
All right, so I'd entertain a motion on item 9.
Well, since it's consent agenda, can I do 9, 10, 12, 13, and 14, then we'll tackle 11 specifically?
Well, you pulled them off consent.
I pulled them off, so we gotta deal with them. I think we can deal with them real fast here.
I'll get it started.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that,
I'm sorry,
that
are
we
you
have,
gonna do a group together?
No, we're not. We're gonna do 9. We're doing 9.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion, agenda item 9, that we approve ordinance 06-14-25, a rewrite of chapter 3 building regulations, article 3.1400, sign regulations of the code of ordinances.
Do I hear a second? Second. I've got a motion by Councilman Billieux, seconded by Councilman Burris, to approve ordinance 06-14-25 as detailed in action item 9. Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, raise your hand. Passes unanimously. All right. Council, what's your pleasure on 10?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve consent agenda item number 10 as presented.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I've got a motion by Councilman Billieux, seconded by Councilman Gann, to approve ordinance 06-13-25 as detailed in agenda item 10. Any other discussion? All in favor indicate, raise your hand. Passes unanimously. What's your pleasure on item 11? This is the one that needs the little bit of modified language to it.
Yeah,
Let me do it here, and I'll let you do it. You okay with that?
Yes, yes.
So I would entertain a motion to approve ordinance 06-12-25, a rewrite of chapter 14, planning and zoning of the Code of Ordinances with the modification that the payday lending and cash advance use be restricted to RC zoning with an SUP. In addition, sexually oriented businesses shall be prohibited in all categories except I with an SUP. I would entertain a motion to that effect. You can do so moved if you'd
So
like.
moved.
Okay, I've got, do I hear a second? Second. I've got a motion by Councilman Billieux, seconded by Councilman Burris, to approve Ordinance 06-1225, a rewrite of Chapter 14, Planning and Zoning Code of Ordinances with the 2 amendments as previously read. Any other discussion? All in favor indicate by raising your hand. Passes unanimously. Okay. That gets us to item 12. What's your pleasure, council?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve consent agenda 12 as presented.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Burris, seconded by Councilman Gann, to approve amendments to Chapter 6, Health and Sanitation of the Code of Ordinances as detailed in Agenda Item 12. Any other discussion? All in favor indicate by raising your hand. Passes unanimously. Thank you. That brings us to 13. Council?
I'll make a motion that we approve consent agenda number 13 as presented.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
I've got a motion by Councilman Gann, seconded by Councilman Burris to approve Ordinance 06-1625 as detailed in Agenda Item 13. Any other discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Passes unanimously. Thank you. That gets us to 14. What's your pleasure?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve consent agenda number 14 as presented.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
I've got a motion by Councilman Burris, seconded by Councilman Gann, approving Ordinance 06-1725 as detailed in Agenda Item 14. Any other discussion? All in favor indicate by raising your hand. Passes unanimously 4-0. Okay, now everybody can make sure that I've covered it all. Are we missing anything other than going to our information? We've got future agenda items. Council, is there any future agenda item you'd like to mention?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to bring up one, in light of recent activities here. I did visit with the city manager briefly, and some of the questions I got from citizens were, what's our permitting, what do we do, different things, and I know we don't have, is it a special event? What is it?
Public assembly.
Public assembly, that other cities around us do, and I mentioned this, but I kind of put it on the spot, Mr. City Manager. Can we have a workshop just to understand the pros and cons of doing that, and if other cities that you told me you were familiar with, if we could have some examples to consider, and just as a future. There wasn't any opportunity for us to discuss it or see it or do anything prior to that event, but just, I think it makes sense. Knowing,
It does.
because if it's, just a local assembly, that's one thing, but if it is something that could be a lot more confrontational, the city needs to have some way to prepare and understand and plan appropriately. That's all.
We're happy to do that, council. I would, take a moment to say I appreciate the calls that I received and the texts I received for some clarity and some items like that. Again, we don't always dig into details on that with you guys because it's, some of those things just become routine for us. I would like to commend your police chief and the police department. You had an event that was really handled well by the men and women that do that on our behalf.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I attended that event. And I saw a few other people there just to observe and see. And there was, I shouldn't say we were there in force, we were, but it wasn't in your face. The one person I saw walking around was chief and interacting with everyone there, whether there were sides or not, he was interacting. But I saw where staff, your folks were located, and it was uneventful, but in this day and age, there could be some things that really sparked some controversy, and if we planned that well for that, because we weren't aware of what you were doing, so I don't know if you want to elaborate on anything, but what I saw, I was very pleased.
And I was too, in my drive-by, because I went through as well, and yeah, it looks like Chief had it all under control.
Yeah, your chief and his staff worked incredibly hard. He was well aware of that event in advance, as well as how it was organized and who was organized, as is our expectation of your police chief. But definitely the leadership, his leadership shines when you look at his policing, and the department's policing is done beforehand. Right. I think we all can recognize that the efforts that Chief Cheek has put into community policing, and those sometimes are the dividends of that pay. Again, we cannot be prepared for those unknowns, the people we don't know, the people that show up. But if we have reliable people and relationships with those that we do know and that live here, it makes his job easier, I believe. Chief, would you like to?
Yeah, so I think the big thing is that one of the main reasons I spent time out walking in the crowd was, one, to let them know we were there, because I didn't want everybody being in their faces and them just seeing a whole bunch of cops. But I was walking around asking everybody if they had drunk plenty of water, because it was a hot and muggy day. I didn't want anybody falling out and the fire having to come take care of them. But just to let them know, hey, we're here. We support your right to stand out and have a rally and protest, if that's what you want to call it, to actually do it peaceably. But we were ready in case outsiders or some that came didn't. And for every bit of both sides who were there, you commended and thanked by just pretty much everybody. It was peaceful. There were people from both sides talking to one another. Couldn't be gone.
Any other future agenda items? We don't want to go too far astray on. Right.
Thanks for the action. It was all the guys and gals.
I did good.
Anything else, future agenda?
No, sir.
Okay. You have information items, the Republic Service Waste Report. Any questions on that of staff?
Any updates on when they were going to come?
We're going to take one more report from them. This one was more accurate than the others. The lines on this report, some of the missed pickups didn't match what the missed pickups were as we had them recorded, but the numbers were at least more accurate. So we're hoping to have one more report from them to work out the tweaks and then bring them in. Jerry and her team have done an outstanding job of really cleaning that up for us, we believe.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. See no other items on the agenda. I'll call this meeting, my phone is dead, so I'll call this meeting adjourned at 10:19.
Thank you, council.
Thank you.